turn yours down just a little bit?
Let me turn my volume on.
Julie, do I need to do anything on this one?
I should be.
Go ahead, you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, there we go. Okay, and then we'll just add that.
I'd like a little reason.
Okay, for everybody on Zoom, are we good to go now?
Yeah, let's get it bigger. Okay, I'll introduce myself.
All right. All right, introduce me, Dr. J. Lee.
Thanks for the intro, appreciate it. Do I have to stand in any particular place? Does it matter? I can walk around because I'm one of them. Okay, sir.
Points, I've got general directions, so if you go way over here with points.
Okay, well, I'll need to hit the advance here to get the slides moving forward. I like y'all's slide, so the university did that. They did a good job on that. Looks really good. So my background was, so you introduced me, everybody missed it because we were muted, but just to review that quickly, I'm a visiting professor. I retired from the chair, it's been 1.5 to 2 years now. And I got rehired back to cover a few classes, so I'm a visiting professor. That's a change in status. So I'll probably be retired again, go back to working, but anyway, it's been good to be here. Before I got here, let me give you a little background on getting to the sports psychology. So my PhD is actually in motor behavior from the University of Houston. And I left there and I did a couple of teaching gigs and I ended up tenured faculty at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas. And I gave that up. I resigned tenure there and I went to work as a contractor for the Army. So I brought a military and law enforcement background and I went to work for the Army and I became a senior performance enhancement specialist for the Army Center for Enhanced Performance. And basically that program was a vision of a guy named Louis Choka. And what he wanted to do, he was a West Point U.S. Military Academy guy. He taught psychology there. He brought in a couple of people like me, and we developed a program that was taught to the Army, to soldiers, based on sports psychology. The initial push became the push for putting it in the classroom. So they had identified crucial academic skills, and they wanted to extend the mental skills from sports psychology and apply it in the classroom. So that got that push. And then that resulted in further funding and went out and taught the program to the wider Army. So I ended up traveling around the world. I did that for a couple of years. In the course of doing that, I also became certified by ASP, which was the certifying body in the United States in sports psychology. And I'm on the USOC sports psychology register for the Olympics. So I did that as well. I work with professional athletes, law enforcement, military. I work with developing athletes and children. So I've done the whole range of things. And so what I'd like to do is review this idea of sports psychology as a set of mental skills and how that can be applied in the classroom. So the things that result in enhanced performance are the same everywhere in the world. And so this is basically the mission of using sports psychology in the classroom. And it's just to give people an advantage and to improve performance. It's one of those areas where we expect people to get it or not. Okay. We think you're going to turn up in the classroom and because you've been to high school and now you're an undergraduate or you're a graduate student at Highlands, you should be able to have these set of mental skills that we don't ever talk about, but you're going to be able to use that and apply that to your own life. So what I want to do is kind of present this as a set of skills that seem to be the most related to enhanced performance. And this is the educational model that we put together. And you can see that I should have brought a pointer, I guess, but you can see that we've got 5 skills here, starting with that, the building confidence in yellow. And then you've got 3 little arrows there, goal setting, attention control, energy management. The whole thing is covered with integrating imagery. And this is a push toward mental strength for life. This idea is to pull it from the playing field or the gym or the court and put it in the classroom. And what I want to do is kind of explain some of the parallels. So yes, we need academic skills. Yes, we need to learn how to to put together a schedule, et cetera, but this goes more fundamental. So this puts it in a very fundamental basis of, before I put together my schedule, I have to come up with a way to do that. So these are basic objectives here. We want to talk about mental toughness, and I can start pulling these apart and spend a lot of time on all of them, obviously. But when we talk about mental toughness in this model, that became resilience. And the ASET program that I worked with for the Army got pulled into a bigger program. It became successful. So it attracted a lot of money, and a lot of big shots wanted to have their names associated. It became what's called comprehensive soldier fitness, which is what they have today. Okay. The entire ASET piece that we developed got pulled into comprehensive soldier fitness as the resilience part of that program. Now, resilience is one of those words now that everybody throws around. Everybody can tell you that they know what it means, and then when you ask them to define it, they don't have a clue. So you can't learn resilience just by going to yoga class. Yoga is great, but you have to have specific structure like any academic model. You have to learn how to apply things. So all of these 5 mental skills that I just put up there should have a training and educational support package associated with it. And it can't just be a bullet list of little boxes to check off. Yeah, we did this, we did this, we did this. It's actually an educational process that people need to go through. There's a lot of myth busting that's involved here in terms of things like building confidence. You know, how do you build and restore confidence? And people talk about that as if being successful builds your confidence, and it's not. That doesn't do it. It's what you tell yourself about your experience that helps you become confident. There's lots of people who've experienced no success who are very, very supremely confident, than others who've never been successful and they're confident. It's what you tell yourself about success and failure that lead to that. So teaching people self-talk would be a part of that educational module, right? I've got a classroom full of students all the time who have a lack of confidence. Yeah. How many times have you been teaching class and you ask students, do anybody have any questions? And no hands go up. And then as soon as the class is over, you get 2 of them standing there at the desk, right? That's a confidence issue. They don't want to look bad in front of other students. So they don't ask the questions that everybody would benefit from hearing. And they avoid things, they hide what they perceive as failure. I mean, I know you didn't turn in your paper, you don't need to hide it from me. Just let's work through that. Let's figure out what's going on. And so there's a whole part there of building confidence that you talk about. Students have to develop strategies so that they can thrive during challenges. We just went through this big fire, we were, just talking about it with Dr. Kintner and that was a real threat to people's confidence in not just the students, but the university and the community. And it's ongoing. What do we tell ourselves about that situation that can help us regain confidence, restore our confidence in the community? Mental agility, people need to be able to shift on the fly. And the most important thing out of all of this is actually to develop a goal setting program. So all those 5 mental skills, goal setting is the one that is almost universally shown in studies, business and sport and other areas, to be successful. Goal setting is one of the most powerful things we can do. The problem with goal setting programs, they're done badly. If you look at elite athletes, elite performers, they're all using goal setting. They have a process. It's almost really great up there at the top end. At 80% of coaches under D1 don't use goal setting. They're not using it, even though it's been shown to be that powerful as an addition, but it's still not taught. So let's formalize the process. Let's teach that. And then how do you visualize future success? We want people to be able to see themselves being successful and pull the parts together. So that's where I'm going to head today and go over that. So this idea, it's mental strength for life. It's not mental strength for sport or academics or anything. It includes your social life. You know, we have to have a good mental program in our heads to be successful at everything. So these are the most practical thinking skills that we can come up with that are going to be included in this program. And these are examples of where you might see these skills applied. On the academic side, well, let's start with the sports side there. There's individual mental skills training, but there's also team mental skills training. And team building, goal setting, leadership, athletic related fitness. Not invariably, but generally when we talk about a goal setting program. Nicole, what sport did you play? Basketball player. So how's this sound? We're gonna have a meeting at the coach's house and have a pizza party. You ever been there and done that?
Yeah.
So got a pizza party going and there's a flip chart. And the coach, you're laughing because you've been there more than once. So the flip chart goes, what's our goals for the season? Well, we're gonna win the world championship. And it's pie in the sky. Wonderful stuff. Okay. And then you eat your pizza and you go home. You don't see the flip chart for the whole season. And then at the end of the season, the flip chart comes out and you hit everybody on the head with it. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's all kind of a very negative process. That's not goal setting. Okay. That's going through the motions. And I have observed my students now for 40 years. I've been teaching adults. And they kind of do the same process up here for everything. So my suggestion is let's formalize this process, teach everybody how to do this a lot. Academic, these are just skills I put up there. It's not an exhaustive list. Clearly, these are kind of fundamental things. Time management, well, suddenly it starts down like goal setting. And study and focus skills, that's goal setting. It's also attention control, being focused on the thing that's most important in a given moment. Students don't do that. I've got half my students on ADD meds. Okay, you get the waivers and stuff from the Office for Students with Disabilities, and they need extended time. They need this, they need that. Okay, they need these skills, and it would help everybody. So I've taken that academic and the health and fitness and just kind of pull that part out and expand it a little bit. There's a little bit more here. And I'll kind of go through these quickly. Just want to make sure I get the big points here. This is a little bit more detailed. And it's not an exhaustive list either, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. Look at the third bullet down on the right, sleep and energy application in academics. I have on this model for mental skills, energy management. So we should be doing something for energy management. Students should have a sleep routine called sleep hygiene. They should be getting horizontal sleep every day, a minimum number of times. In the military, we caught naps called combat naps. It leads to all kinds of problems, breakdowns, all kinds, from a failure to recover. So students have high demands on their energy and their time. But when you tell them you're off until tomorrow, okay, need you to go home and recover, they go home and play video games, watch TV. Okay, they're not doing things that help them recover. They're not doing a good diet. They're not eating properly. So these things are missing. That's also a mental skill, being able to pull energy back into the system after you've spent all day spreading it around. How do you get that back in? Anyway, you can see these things. These are the kinds of bits and pieces here that all are connected to these overall bigger ideas from the sports side. There's a kind of psychology or a branch called positive psychology. If you're probably everybody's familiar with it now. Doesn't have to be broken to get better. One of the things I noticed in sports psych when I first got involved is coaches would call. We got a big, they call on Wednesday, got a big game Saturday night, got a lack of confidence on the team. Come in here and put a Band-Aid on it, fix it so that we can go compete in 2 days. Doesn't work. Sports psychology, like an educational program, requires rubrics, lesson plans, units, has to have expertise, there has to be a background and foundation of knowledge. It's things that we have to put in there so people do that can follow it and learn it. But the medical model, where you're fixing a problem with a Band-Aid or a vaccination or an aspirin, that's not what I'm talking about. This should start early and continuously. The best and most elite performers can all improve. Everybody can get better. It doesn't have to be broken to get better. That's a big change. Today I still get calls all the time. Every day I get calls. We've got a problem with our team. Da, 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 da. My athlete's doing this. My field goal kicker is missing because. And almost always the coaches are wrong what the real problem is. So it takes a while to find out what the real problem is. Then you have to have the program to help make the repairs. And really what you want is a foundation to work from. This is the thing that's missing. Not just Highlands. I'm not singling Highlands out for this at all. It's missing at the university level and a lot of college sports as well. Okay. Got to have that foundation. So they need all the bits and pieces. It's kind of like a Chinese menu. I used to own a Chinese restaurant, and then you make an A, B, C, D, and you get the family dinner and you pick 1 from A, and 2 from B, and 3 from C. That doesn't work here. The entire program has to move forward. So let's see how that works. And I've kind of mentioned these already. So there's a relationship between thought performance that is everybody's aware of, but it's generally overlooked. So because we do know a lot about thought performance relationship, we should be teaching that. I incorporate this into a lot of my classes. Students respond to it well, but there's not much follow-up, you know, and it's hard to get in touch with them again, and it's hard for them to stick with it because they haven't mastered it. It's just more information that they're being confronted with. I've mentioned already about understanding the nature of confidence, establishing a purpose and a plan. There's our goal setting. Let's see. I want to keep us going forward here. This kind of explains where I'm coming from in a way. We spend a lot of time. Let's think about coaches, for example, and then I want you to just make the extension to the classroom. It applies the same way. Coaches spend a lot of time teaching physical, tactical, and technical information. When you coach an athlete, that's where you have all the structure. I want to improve your strength. What do? I put you on a strength training program. What's that look like? You're doing 8 to 12 exercises. You're doing this many reps, this many sets, 2 to 3 days a week. Right? Sound familiar? There's structure there. So people can get stronger. That results in an improvement in strength. I want you to be faster. I've got a plan and a program to do that. I want you to learn these plays. Football players are memorizing all kinds of stuff. They don't memorize stuff for my class sometimes, okay? But look at the load that they're carrying on what they have to learn. Most professors would be surprised how much their athletes are learning for sport. So it depends on where their focus and their attention is. I'm talking about putting that also in the classroom. So lots of structure down here, And there's a couple things going on here with exercise training. We have our physical training, we have exercise prescription, and we have a lot of repetition. Exercise prescription is the example I just gave you with the strength training. Okay? Repetition. Here's a slogan for you. Repetition builds strength. And that's true whether it's strength training, weight training, or getting faster or speedier, or learning something with Dr. Kidner's class. Repetition builds strength, right? It's not just repetition, it's proper repetition. That's why they need us, right? Professor, we've got to have a job in here somewhere. Okay. So repetition builds strength. There's our physical training component, and there's all kind of structure there. And we've got physical effort. What's the nature? And I've got a couple of athletes in here. What's the nature of physical effort when you're trying to learn? Self-critical. Okay, I got to do this, especially early learning. I've got to do this, then I do that, step one, step two, step three. A lot of dialogue in the head. Where people are talking themselves through the skill, they got to get the idea of the skill of the movement, then they have to get the sequence, then they start working on step by step, slow for form, full speed and power. Then we go to simulations and scrimmage. Classroom's the same thing. Same rule applies in the classroom. Start with the basics, fundamentals, the bits and the pieces, when you start to put it together. What you want to end up with in the classroom is the same thing you want on an athletic field, which is to integrate these skills into an achievement, into performance that's the best you can do. And if it's not the best you can do, it's on the path to the best you can do. Okay? So, again, what do we do down here with physical effort? We tend to be self-critical and very judgmental of ourselves. And you hear the self-talk. If we're thinking about confidence, students in their self-talk beat themselves up. Can't believe you missed that, you dummy. That's how they talk to themselves. And if I don't make this shot, we all did this as kids. If I don't make this shot, the whole world is going to end. And I didn't know, okay, well, I missed that one, but if I don't make this shot, the whole world's going to end, right? They'll do like 4 or 5 times. If I don't make this, my mom's going to die. They come up with all this really negative stuff. And they spend a lot of time doing that negative stuff. Remember, repetition builds strength. We need that kind of experience to develop confidence, to get good at something. We go through this judgmental, analytical, self-critical process. But when we get to the game situation, we take the test in the classroom, or we go on the court and play the game. We need a different kind of mindset. We need to let things happen. We can't make them happen. What happens, an athlete gets a bad call in a game, and they're now into this negative mental state that interferes with performance. They catastrophize. They fall apart. Okay? One mark of an elite athlete is they get back in the game quickly. How quickly can you get somebody back in the game when they have a setback? Okay? They need instruction. You've got to teach them how to do this. And as professors, we try to do it. We make recommendations and try to provide the support we can, but our classes are not the best place to develop this foundation. I personally think we should be reinforcing at that point. The mental effort up here is self-regulating, it's instinctive, adaptive, got to be agile. So I'm breaking the domains down a little bit into this affective, behavioral, cognitive, social domain. Okay. How do you manage your social relationship? Okay. Benefits from this as well. We test people all day long. Everything you do in your social world is a test. You say something, you look at people's reaction, and you make a mental note. Oh, I shouldn't say that, they misunderstood me, or whatever. Or I don't like that guy, or I don't like her, because the way they interact, it just makes me feel creepy. It's a test. We're always doing it. We do this all day long. What we should do is embed this additionally into that as a personal skill, looking at sports side. There's my 5 skills up there on the top right. Okay. And what I want to do, well, we go a little bit further here. This is a mental skills training model that I used for the Army, and I had 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. This is almost all any of the soldiers got. Okay. And the reason why is this obviously takes time and money. It demands resources that aren't always available, likely aren't available. Okay. Later with the Army, we had good results. So they funded a lab. I had a great lab at Fort Bliss, for example. We had EEG, EMG, we had those eggshell chairs with 10 of those. Put a video set up. We were doing video stimulated recall, interpersonal process recall. This was all while the soldiers were wired up, and we showed live combat videos and had them react, and we taught them how to breathe and control their energy, focus on what's important at a given moment. All these skills got applied there. Again, same thing applies in the classroom. Eventually you get to this mastery and applied level, and that's where you're working one-on-one with an athlete. My vision is that in academics, this would all get embedded. It would just be part of the educational process. Instead of making the same mistake we've always made, not just in academics, but also in athletics, which is to think by participation, you automatically gain this stuff. And we know that's not true. Okay. Vince Lombardi, famous football coach, people would always say, sport builds character. You heard it, you heard that. Sport builds character. Lombardi said it doesn't. It's a coach everybody loved at the time. Lombardi said it eliminates weak ones. So it's an evolutionary process, right? Weak fall by the wayside, as we said in the Marine Corps. Okay. People that are unsuccessful drop out. You're left with people that have the greatest strength. Same thing with elite athletics, same thing with elite academics. We weed people out. Maybe we would be greatly successful later if we could hang on to them and give them some of this background. Okay. Anyway, mental strength for life, right? You see where this is going. And the mental skills foundations. Once you start to understand the role that your thinking plays in performance, this can be leveraged to improve performance. You start to work on the small pieces here. Okay? I talked a little bit about these two mindsets. And here's a little bit more about thought performance interaction. We've got some kind of thought hit your head. This results in emotions and feelings. You elicit this. Leads to changes in physiology. And that physiology and your perspective affect your performance. Do you have butterflies in your stomach? Or are you raring to go? You can interpret it both ways. It's important how you interpret experience. It's important what you tell yourself about what's going on. Students are exactly the same. I got an email last night, student. I apologize. They missed the game. And there's this long apologetic letter. I don't need that. I know you missed the deadline. I'll work with you. We're going to get past that. Don't worry. You're going to turn your paper in. We're going to figure out what's going on. My goal, my mission is that you learn the material in my classes, that you know things when you're done. It's not that I can check the boxes and give you an A, B, C, or D. That might make you happy, but really, ultimately, what do we care about? We want students to learn the material. We want the A's and B's and C's to reflect reality. But it's really all about students learning. Right? This is a tool to help them enhance their learning and their performance in the classroom. How many times you're driving down the street? What do they call this? The high school kids? New Mexico, it's the land of entrapment. So when you're driving down the street in Texas now, because in Mexico, marijuana is legal, right? In Texas, the Taliban's in charge. So if you get pulled over for marijuana or wearing a dress or a wig and you're a dude, they drag you out of the car and they shoot you on the side of the road. I'm kidding, they don't really do that. But people worry about getting a ticket and they worry about that. Driving down the road with your friends, you look in the rearview mirror and see that. What's the first thing you say? You turn the radio off and you tell everybody to shut up. Is anybody holding? Nobody's been drinking, have they? Who's designated driver? You start worrying about the details and the outcomes of the future instead of being in the moment. No problem driving. But when you look in the rearview mirror and you see this, you forget how to drive. Right? Classroom's the same thing. Do your students sit up and worry about having missed an assignment? Do they ruminate all night long instead of sleeping because they're worried? They're concerned about consequences and outcomes. These are all mental skills, being able to deal with these kind of setbacks. Let's go a little bit further with this. And these are kind of physiological changes. Here's a different perspective, same experience. So people tell themselves they're going to have a negative experience and they're worried about outcome. Turn in a late paper. You got frustration, disappointment, impatience, they're fearful. They're concerned about the outcome, the consequences bother that point of thinking this through. What's their physiological reactions? It's things like muscle tightness, raised heart rate, respiration goes up. They interpret that as stress and anxiety. Some students go straight at stress and anxiety and study more. Other students avoid. They quit coming to class because they feel so bad to be in your class. So they quit coming. And that might be the student who's actually the smartest student in the room. But you don't know because they're not getting it out to you. It's a lack of confidence. It's not an academic skill per se, but it affects everyone. Decreased performance, and the self-talk looks kind of like this. I don't want to fail. I'm in trouble. I hate this. I wish I was somewhere else. I can't wait to get out of school. You know, if my parents weren't making me go, I'd quit. If I didn't have to go to class so I could play sports, it'd be great. You get all these kinds of reactions. On the other hand, the same situation with a different, slightly different mindset might be interpreted in this way. It's a challenge, not a threat. You've been there. Everybody has. I can't wait to succeed. This is my chance. I love competition. I just turned up competition, just walked through the door. Yeah. Okay. Attitude. Effortless, automatic, in control. These are the words people use to describe this kind of experience. Muscle readiness instead of just butterflies in the stomach. Got a raised heart rate again, but it's interpreted as excitement instead of anxiety. These are two different mindsets. Exact same situation. If you took a psych class or an education class, you might have had this presented as approach avoidance. Same kind of physiology that we're dealing with here. The cool thing is, from a sports psych approach, you learn that your reaction is largely under your control. If you just knew what to do. Okay. Let's see here. So here's a thing that I have to go over with my students quite a bit. If you don't think you're going to succeed, you're probably right. Okay. Are you going to be successful or not? And people who haven't experienced success, this isn't kind of a disadvantage. They expect more failure. They haven't had any success. Doesn't have to be that way. Let's see. Here's our two complementary mindsets. There's different ways to present this. We call it a training mindset and a trusting mindset. We could call it developing confidence. Again, two different mindsets. Telic, paratelic. In competence mindset, that's what I talked about earlier with the structure in sport, is it's blood, sweat, and tears. You got to pay the price. It's all this kind of negative stuff. Okay. Conscious control, got to make it happen. Confidence mindset, trusting mindset, and let things happen. It's integration of these various skills to get you there. We don't do this when we play golf. We do this when we're working on our tee off. Working on our driver off the tee. We do this before we get up there. But when we hit the ball, you can't do this. You don't have enough space in your head or time to do this. But sometimes we take this and we continue to apply it all the time. And it's overwhelming. So it contributes kind of a negative experience for students. This was at West Point. There's a lake up there. They bus the cadets over there from Military Academy. And there's this nice lake with a metal beam that goes across. And it's got a little stair step there in the middle. Beam's about 12 inches wide. Now, what you don't see here is in the classroom before we took them here, I had a plank in the middle of the classroom. It's 2 by 12. It's, just a board on the floor in the classroom. I got them up on the board and I said, yeah, we'll walk down the board, balance, don't fall off. No problem, they can all do it. They're laughing, I think I'm stupid. So they're walking down here, put a little step up, step down in the middle. No problem, got it. Yeah. You're wasting our time, Dr. Lee, let's do something fun. Okay, let's do something fun. Load them up on the buses, take them to the lake, put a a float jacket on them. Have them walk up, climb the tower here and walk across the water. Quite a ways off the water, it's almost 20 feet. And then they got a little step up, step down. And so they were laughing in the classroom. And they get out here, 60% are falling in the water. They forget how to walk. It's a different mindset. Are we doing the same thing in the class? In our classroom, are we doing something similar? There's, you know, success or failure, sink or swim. It's this or it's that. Should be easy to integrate some of this, I think, just how we talk about it. Let's see here. I'm on a advisory board for a martial arts school in Houston. It's a large martial arts school. It's 800 plus students. This is the guy that owns it. So he's doing something in martial arts. He's got a kind of mindset. But you got to let go of fear, doubt, and worry to do this well. And I want students to learn to really do. So we're kind of back to these 5 skills. I put them up because I talked around them and you already forgot. So here we go. Building confidence, goal setting, attention control, energy management, integrating imagery. Do those kind of connect now? See how they're kind of easy to apply in classroom. I'll give you a set of these notes. Good one. And here's practical thinking strategies for building confidence or restoring confidence. You may already be very confident. So it's not that you need to develop it, you just got a whole bunch. But if you get a threat imposed during a game or in a classroom, you had a bad grade, what do you do with it? What do you go next? And so there is a, as I said, this is kind of modular. So you got these 5 skills and they really should be taught around an educational and training performance model, kind of a modular approach. Y'all can read that. I'll make these available. Everybody can have a copy of these if they want them. Interesting thing about on building confidence is that it's really about cultivating a powerful self-image. So, for example, how many times have you heard people say they lost because they were overconfident? You hear it all the time. I watched sports yesterday and I heard it. I watched soccer last week and I heard it. Well, they lost. They were overconfident. Okay, write this down. Get a tattoo. No one has ever lost because they were overconfident. No one has ever lost for being overconfident. You might have been underprepared. You might have underestimated your opponent. You might have read them wrong. You might have, everybody on the team had the flu. You know, there's a lot of reasons why we lost. But being overconfident is never, ever one of them. Back to approach avoidance. This is a weird, y'all see the problem with myth busting on this? All these are like this. All 5 of these modules would be the same. We have a lot of myths operating. Athletes get an advantage because they're kind of in an environment where they can address those face to face and learn to overcome them with proper instruction. But our students don't have that opportunity. A lot of things happen to them and they didn't study hard enough, so they chalk it up to being overconfident. No, it's because you didn't study hard enough. It's not because of overconfidence. Let's blame what needs to be blamed and see if we can make things better. Anyway, we're not going to have time to go through these individually, but just to kind of let you know, here's goal setting. This, as I said, this is probably the best skill here out of all these. It's the one resulting in the best outcomes. That's a GPS thing. You remember when we bought those? Now they're on the phone, right? You got Waze, Maps, Google, you got all this stuff. My wife has attention deficit really bad, okay? And she always prints out the instructions to drive from here to Lubbock or something. And if she misses a turn, she has to go home and start over. Okay, it's the ADD thing, I guess. She doesn't have a schema in her head. I've been through this. She's what do you call it? Aphantasia. She doesn't see things in her head. She doesn't image well in her head. But she is confident she can go anywhere in the world now with Apple Maps. Doesn't have to go home and start over. What happens if you get off the path with your app, it recalculates. It doesn't say go home and start over. It recalculates. So when we set these ideas, goal setting with our students, we want to emphasize it's a process. It's not that flip chart at the end of the season that you hit the athletes with. It's an everyday concept. Let's go a little bit further with that. Oh, this is so slow. And there's a process I use. It's a 7-step process. I have a 25-page worksheet. If you want it, let me know. I'll send it to you. 25-page worksheet. It's a worksheet. You'll write stuff.
25 pages,
It's 25 pages. Well, about half the back of it are things you cut out for bookmarkers. You know, it's goal for, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you fill them in, you check them off as you go through, and you carry them over if you don't. There's a whole process. You teach people how to goal set, and then you teach them how to use it as a process to improve performance. Don't just leave it hanging. We have to do goal setting with individuals, with teams, with organizations. We did this with Third Corps. I did it at Fort Bliss with all the generals in Third Corps. Then their goal setting plan went to the commanders for the brigade combat teams. And the brigade combat team commanders set goals for the brigade level. And then they brought in the intermediate commanders, the captains and the majors. They went through it again. It actually worked all the way down for 3 brigade combat teams. I'm talking 45,000 soldiers, all the way down to the individual soldier who was walking around with a little green notebook and a flap on their trousers. And they use that all day long to make notes, check their plans, and then set their goals and evaluate how they were doing. So we taught the process, not just going through it once, laying out a bunch of goals and then walking off. It's a process. It needs continuous support and use. What do we say? Repetition builds strength. Okay. Attention control. Every moment has the most important thing. We don't have a baseball bat in here. Golly, if we were in Wilson, I'd have a baseball bat. How many of y'all, when you were little, took a baseball bat, put it on your palm of your hand, and balanced it? Everybody remember doing it? And everybody's going, yeah, I did that. What's the most important thing? The top of the bat. You look at the bat up at the top, you're fine. As soon as you look at your hand, the bat goes that way, and you can't catch up to it, drop it. Can't balance it. Every moment's like that. Everything, even this moment. Everything has something that's most important. My students with ADD don't have a problem with not enough attention. Their problem is they're paying attention to everything. In my classroom, they're all over the place. They're missing the thing that's most important, usually. Okay. Their attention's everywhere. Distractions, sound, temperature, lighting, computer glitches, person next to them, the guy that's hiding his texting under the table. Those are all distractions. They're completely unimportant for that classroom at that moment. Most important thing, listen to me, read this stuff, do the work with your partners. These are the important things. Stay focused. Easier said than done. And then, like I said, a lot of time. Attention control. So putting your focus where it needs to be. And let me back up here. So an attention control. Establish functional routines. The military had a lot of routines for everything. Another group that I trained was THAAD, air crew operators, people who shoot the smart missiles. They're interceptors, actually, not missiles. They have a routine. You can't spend 4 hours every day staring at a computer screen where nothing happens. They get bored. So they have a keyword. They say fireball, fireball, fireball. That means they detected a launch. Okay. Then they focus and they go to work. We do it in sports, 3rd and 4th down. 3rd down and 4, 3rd down and 1, 4th down and 2. We have a routine. Athletes do that. We don't do that in the classroom. Why not? Okay, let me get that. Like I said, this is a quick. Energy management, I've talked about a little bit. You gotta have sleep discipline, you have to have food discipline. You have to relax and recover energy and not just put your feet up. Taking a nap doesn't do it. Playing video games definitely doesn't do it. Need to let the mind relax and focus. Meditation is better than all of that. Okay, for pulling energy back in the system. But most of them don't know how to breathe, so you have to keep breathing. How do you pull energy back in? Anyway. Not enough time, I'm sorry. A lot of this has to do with how people perceive things. As I said, you got different mindsets. One of them is controllable and uncontrollable forces. Students confuse those. What can they control? And what can they not control? Okay. Wrapping up here real quick, and then imagery. You got to be able to see yourself being successful. And what we found was basketball players. It's a good example of the study we did. We did imagery and free throw shooting. Phi Slam and Jam, actually, those guys. And so we had free throw shooting. They had terrible free throw shooting. So they let us get carte blanche to work with the Phi Slam and Jam. Team of Life One, Clyde Drexel, Benny Andrews, Michael Young. Great group of basketball players. Right? They were shooting about 60%. NBA average is about 74% free throw shooting. 3-point shots, not 3-point, free throw shooting from the line. What's his name? Rick Barry. He shot 95%, and did a granny shot. Nobody wants to do that now because it doesn't look as sexy as that. But we worked with them, and it turned out we had about 4 or 5 of the athletes could not see themselves in their own mind making the basket. They couldn't see the ball go through the hoop in their own mind. It's just imaging up here. They couldn't see themselves being successful. That was a real eye opener for me. So it wasn't a question of just learning how to image. It was learning how to control the imagery and have confidence to be successful. And let's see here. So here's some basic ideas that need to be included. There's the model again, and I'm going to quit right there. I quit way too long, but anyway. If you're interested in this slide deck, I can send you Keynote or PowerPoint, either one. Just send me an email. Let me know. It's Jaylee, JAYLEE, NMHU.edu. And I'll send you these slides. And if you're interested, I'll send you my goal setting workbook. You can use that. It's pretty self-explanatory. I have a lot of materials, things, and attitude and self-talk and a variety of stuff. So got to have the whole package. But I personally, to wrap this up, think we should put this in everything we did, academics as well. And I try to. It's not always easy. We don't have them that much time. Our course material doesn't always lend itself to this kind of an approach, but it is a fundamental to improving performance. And I know a lot of these HU talks are about how do we support our students and how do we improve performance. Personally, I think we should be doing this kind of instruction in middle schools. Not a checklist. It needs to have a module, and you've got to go through the module and learn the material. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I liked your comment about the overconfidence. No one uses it because they're over. So does overconfidence exist? Or is it
No.
just confidence?
It's just confidence. You hear people talk about arrogance. Well, arrogance is not really confidence, but how about a kind of an arrogant confidence? You know, swagger. Swagger's okay, right? So people confuse arrogance with overconfidence. They confuse being distracted with overconfidence. Those are all separate things. They're not overconfidence. Okay? I want overconfident people. Underconfident, I got a problem with that. You know, if everybody's been telling you you're overconfident, I'd teach you anything. Yeah, that's an interesting. It's a myth. It's a buster. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering what your opinion is on maybe why this structure of goal setting is a priority in athletics and how do we get there?
There's a lot of books on the topic, but really you need somebody who knows what they're doing. to get that put in place. And everybody in athletics, coaches at least, know that how important that is. And they all try to make an attempt at it. But they don't have a lot of time to become an expert. So that's where your sports psychologist comes into play, a consultant. You can learn a lot about it out of a book, but you need to have somebody kind of point a little while at the beginning so you start to learn.
Follow-up questions, but do you see sports psychologists becoming more of a valued position in athletic departments? And how long do you think it'll take before it becomes like a?
You'd have to have a commitment to it. You're
Yeah,
gonna commit
like a
resource and
commitment to
time.
all-
Yeah, you could do it overnight, start the process. Remember, this is an ongoing process, it's not something you do and then you're done. This is something you put in place and you continue to provide that support. But the more people, here's one thing that I've observed for 20 years. The more your athletes and your participants in your training learn mental skills, the better they get at this. It changes the dialogue. It takes it away from cliches and they actually start to talk about their experience in a more valid way, more accurate way. It changes their language that they use. The confidence is an example of that. When we talk about confidence, we don't see it as a negative in sports psychology, okay? But a lot of athletes have been conditioned to think if they display confidence, I look arrogant. So they avoid it. It's the opposite. I want you to embrace that. Now let's use it. Okay? That's where they need the strategies. That's where the coach comes in. Coach comes in with the confidence piece in place, and then they can work the game part, the sport part. The athletes turn up, the coaches expect them to have all this because they've played in high school or JUCO or something. But they come out there and realize this isn't working. I don't know why this doesn't work. It's not working. They don't have foundation. Put the foundation in, it becomes part of the team culture or the athletic department's culture. Then it's really easy. It gets easier and easier over time. Repetition builds strength. Great question. I'll work with y'all if you want me. I do it for free.
Most definitely.
You know how. Okay, more questions? Thank y'all so much. I appreciate your time. I know I talked to you.
Thank you.
I can't really speak.
No. Okay. Really easy.